Hi, hope everyone's adjusting to real life again after the holidays. So this week in Parshas Nitzavim, we're very nearly at the end of all of the Sedras, and Moshe is still talking to the Jewish people just before he dies, and he's talking about what he's previously told them, that there's going to be all these curses if you do the wrong thing and blessings if you do the right thing. And he says, "Atem nitzavim hayom," you're standing here today and you are agreeing to this covenant. But then he goes on to say, and I'm not just talking to you, I'm also talking to all the people who aren't standing here today. And the commentators go two ways on this. Some of them say it's talking about future generations, the people that aren't yet standing here today, because they're not born yet. They're going to be reading this in thousands of years to come, like we are doing now. But other people say he's talking about people that are never going to be reading this, because somewhere along the line, somewhere throughout all these generations until this point today, they're not going to be standing anymore, they're not going to be connected anymore, and they're going to have opted out. And he even says to that generation that are standing and listening to him, who have received the Torah at Har Sinai, who've witnessed open miracles, who've received the mon from heaven, he says, even now some of you are probably having doubts. There's some of you standing here who are saying, yeah, I'm going to do it, but really you're thinking, no, I'm not really going to do this. And so he knew that even then, if people are going to have doubts, of course there are people that are going to have doubts in the future, and of course there are going to be people that are opting out. But any of you who are remotely Jewishly involved, and anyone listening to this, I'm assuming is, because why would you be spending this time listening to Dvar Torah otherwise? Think what that means. It means that for generation after generation after generation, dating all the way back to when Moshe was actually saying these words, your family, your ancestors have opted in. Or maybe some of them opted out along the lines and others opted back in, or maybe all of them opted out in your more recent history and you're the one who's opted back in. But you are a testament to the fact that we are still living this commitment today that Moshe was talking about all the way back then, which is an incredible thing if you think about it, that we've stayed connected all this time throughout everything we've been through our Jewish history. And sorry, noise overhead. And if you think about that, that's really what leads us into Rosh Hashana. So it's really nice that Rosh Hashana is just after Shabbos this year, because Rosh Hashana is really all about reconnecting. Why do we need to reconnect if we're already connected, if we're already doing things? Because sometimes we're just going through the motions. Sometimes we're just eating the honey cake and dipping the apple in the honey and blowing the shofar. Maybe we're getting into the shokeling and shul. And, you know, it's a very repetitive motion. It's something that we do every year, and it feels very nostalgic and very familiar, and the tunes and the smell of the honey cake, you know, it's something that's very nice because it's something that we're very used to doing. But sometimes when you do something out of habit, out of rote, out of repetitiveness, it doesn't actually feel the same anymore. You're going through the motions, but you're lacking in emotion. You're not really feeling what you're doing. You know, sometimes you're on the phone to somebody and you're talking and talking, and then suddenly your phone starts to beep and you're on a WhatsApp call and it says it's reconnecting, and you just realize for the last minute or so you've been talking and nobody's actually on the end of the line. You didn't know that you weren't talking to anyone, that you weren't connected, until your phone started to beep. That is what the shofar is for us. Rosh Hashana is that moment where you're like, hang on, I'm doing all of this, and you know, I'm Jewish and I say I'm Jewish and I'm doing all this stuff, but actually I'm not really feeling that connection. Rosh Hashanah, we hear that beep, we hear the sound of the shofar, and we're like, okay, reconnecting, that's what we need to work on now. How are we going to reconnect to those feelings, that emotion, to really make the most of what we're actually doing? There's no point in going through all the motions if it's not doing anything for us, if we're not feeling that connection, because the whole point of life really is to connect and to build a relationship with Hashem. And that's what we're aiming to do on Rosh Hashanah when we say to Hashem, we want you to be our king, and we want you to be our father, Avinu Malkeinu. We want the love of a father, and we want that power of a king. And Hashem's got everything wrapped up in one. He loves us to bits. He created us. He designed us. He made this world for us. And he wants us to enjoy it. And that's why he gave us these instructions of how to get the most out of it. And also, he's our king. He runs the world. It's all in his control. We're seeing that very much at the moment, that everything is out of our control that we previously thought was in our control. And really he is the one running the show, and that's a very comforting thought, really. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's infinite, he's incredible. There's a plan here. We might not know what it is, but I definitely don't know what it is, but he knows what he's doing. And we're saying, you know, Hashem, I just want to leave it up to you. You be the king and you be my father. And then, you know, that's an amazing situation for us to be in. If your father is the king, then that means that we're the princes and the princesses, and we reap all the benefits that that position holds, because we have automatic access to this powerful and loving creator who it's within his power to do anything, give you anything that he wants. Nothing is unachievable when your father is the king. So that is the sentiment we're trying to build on Rosh Hashanah, that we want to get back to that relationship where we really feel that he's our father and our king, and that we can ask him anything, that we can do anything, and that he's rooting for us. And hopefully this Rosh Hashanah we'll be able to reconnect with all those emotions that somehow get lost along the way sometimes. Have a good week and a good Shabbos and Shana Tova.